Are you feeling relaxed right now? Are you relaxed? Are you feeling relaxed? Well, you're not gonna feel relaxed after this, because today we are watching some SCP videos. I know nothing about SCP, guys. Spookin' spook time. SCP. Let's go.
Martin Sims was wandering down the streets of Carson, California. His clothes were ragged,
history
he was
videos,
filthy,
right?
and gibbering like a madman with a full beard and long, unkempt hair. His body was covered in scars, but he showed no signs of malnutrition. What made Martin's sudden appearance so remarkable? He'd been missing for 3 years. When he was interviewed by police, they asked him where he'd been all this time. They couldn't believe his answer. He'd been trapped in an IKEA since 2008, but this was no ordinary IKEA. Martin's strange answers in his interview were laughed off by his interviewing officers, who assumed he was either crazy or under the influence of something. But they caught the attention of an SCP Foundation field agent embedded in the precinct. The report.
Bro, her hair goes hard. What is this? He got trapped in an IKEA? What is going on? Bro, it was the Swedish meatballs.
To a local site director
just wanted all
who approved a detachment of Foundation field operatives to look into Martin's case. While he was reluctant to lead the Foundation agents back to the offending IKEA, the Foundation can be extremely persuasive. His screams of, "Please, I'm begging you, don't take me back, don't make me go back," were noted but ultimately disregarded. When the SCP Foundation had triangulated the position of SCP-3008, which was indeed an active IKEA, the entire retail zone was closed and barricaded.
SCP Foundation, what that? This is fictional, right? SCP Foundation, because this is crazy. There ain't no way this is real. SCP Foundation, IKEA, stuck in IKEA. Okay, good. I was gonna say, you better not be playing with me. You better not be playing with me. Oh, Moody, it's real. It's real, Moody. Lies. Oh my gosh.
Under the pretense of a severe black mold infestation. Armed Foundation personnel also arrived on the site shortly after, based on Martin's vague statements that there were creatures of some kind inside. Due to his deteriorating mental health, Martin was unable to provide a great deal of lucid information on the specific traits of SCP-3008. But one phrase he kept repeating was, "bigger on the inside." Once researchers were satisfied that Martin had delivered all the pertinent information he was able to, he was administered Foundation amnestics to erase his memory of the last 3 years and return to his family. A cover story was formulated. Martin had been kidnapped and abused for 3 years by a mentally unbalanced stalker in downtown Carson. He'd been able to escape as said stalker took his own life out of guilt, a suicide that the Foundation expertly fabricated to make their cover story airtight. With the loose end of Martin Sims taken care of, the true observation of SCP-3008 could begin. A base set around the perimeter of the mysterious IKEA.
Bro, these videos move so quickly. These are moving fast, bro. I'm like locked in. This is going fast, dude.
No exploratory missions had yet been approved by the Foundation Ethics Committee, so they first wanted to perform a week of external observation to see if any of the store's anomalous properties extended beyond the confines of the building. After a week of nothing, it appeared they did not. A local site director approved of the use of 20 disposable Class D personnel to explore the
disposable personnel? What? Bro, this is crazy. What have we dived into?
Interior of SCP-3008. The D-Class operatives would be split into 4 squads of 5 men, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta Squad. Each would be assigned a different quadrant of the store and would deliver information back to the control team on site via a live audio and video link. 3 of the 4 teams upon entering the store reported nothing out of the ordinary. Neither the audio or video they were sending back indicated anything different from a standard IKEA store, from the flat-pack wardrobes to the Swedish meatballs. Team Delta, however, suddenly began experiencing a scrambled audio and video connection. Shortly after, communication with Team Delta dropped off entirely. They disappeared somewhere inside the store and haven't been seen since, with one notable exception. After the disappearance and the extraction of teams, Foundation researchers classified SCP-3008 as Euclid because
the D-Class people are on death row. What? Bro, there's so many layers of lore to this.
Its anomalous properties were at least confined to the interior of the store, and even then seemingly not the entire interior. The anomalous area within SCP-3008 became known as SCP-3008-1, and containment appeared to be 100% secure. There was no telling how many people had already gone missing in the store over the years, but the disappearances must be stopped. The Foundation maintained constant surveillance around the perimeter of SCP-3008, but it appeared they could prevent any further incidents by simply preventing other civilians from accessing the IKEA store. Martin's ravings about monsters were assumed to just be the product of delirium, until a surviving member of Delta Team suddenly reappeared. The date was November 3rd, 2011. It was a cold night, a few hours after what would have been closing time if the store were still active, and 7 months after the extraction teams had disappeared somewhere in the confines of SCP-3008. There had been no anomalous activity outside the store since the perimeter was first secured, and the Foundation researchers hadn't expected that to change until the
Guys, I feel like if I was watching this high, I would actually believe all this and you wouldn't be able to convince me otherwise. I would believe this.
last surviving member of Delta Team came barging out of the store's entrance. Startled field operatives were amazed to see him again, but they were even more amazed to see what was following him out of the store, repeating the same phrase, "The store is now closed, please exit the building." Despite the fact that the entity chasing the Delta Team survivor was wearing the yellow shirt and blue pants of an IKEA store employee, the being definitely was not human. It was around 7 feet tall with no visible face. The entity had grossly extended limbs, with each arm being around 5 or 6 feet long and ending in a huge oversized hand. The whole process was so sudden that the field agents present at the perimeter weren't able to save the Delta Team survivor, as the entity reached forward with his freakishly long arms, grabbed him and twisted his head off like a child with a doll. The field operatives present drew their weapons and peppered the entity with bullets. It would later be classified as SCP-3008-2. The being appeared to collapse and die from the physical trauma, at which point it and the body of the former Delta Team survivor were taken for an autopsy by Foundation researchers. There were no biological abnormalities of the body of the Delta Team survivor, so it did not appear that the anomalous properties of SCP-3008-1 had any effect on the physiology of its occupants.
What the heck?
He was not malnourished despite being missing for months, and the contents of his stomach looked to be half-digested food consistent with the menu of a typical IKEA store restaurant. SCP-3008-2, on the other hand, raised a number of perplexing biological questions. The autopsy revealed that the creature's clothes were actually part of its body, like an additional layer of skin. The creature lacked blood or any kind of vascular system. Even stranger, the entity didn't appear to have bones or internal organs, not even a brain or nervous system. It was a being made entirely of skin all the way to its core. How it was able to move, or even live for that matter, remains a mystery. Though when you work for the SCP Foundation, you learn to accept that some things will always remain unexplained.
What the heck?
However, after a lengthy period of trial and error, the Foundation was able to establish a more secure connection with its drones. SCP-3008-1 seemed to break the laws of spatial reality, as the area of the IKEA's interior was at least an order of magnitude larger than its exterior. Just as Martin Sims had said, it was bigger on the inside, but just how much bigger? The Foundation has yet to find evidence of any physical terminators within the store that might indicate SCP-3008-1 has an endpoint. While an area of at least 10 kilometers squared has been uncovered in SCP-3008-1, it could in theory be infinite. Laser rangefinder tests, which are normally very reliable, have only given inconclusive results. Interestingly, the anomalous area doesn't have any clear visual differences from the rest of the IKEA store, except that it extends forever. An individual trapped within the confines of SCP-3008-1 wouldn't even realize they've entered an anomalous zone until they tried to locate an exit and leave, at which point they'd find they were already hopelessly lost. The geography of SCP-3008-1 does at least appear to be consistent, so people trapped within are theoretically able to retrace their steps and escape if they haven't already ventured too deep. According to data collected during the drone reconnaissance missions, SCP-3008-2, of which there appear to be a vast population, would wander the stores aimlessly during the day. They are unresponsive to the drone's presence and did not appear to be aggressive. While the physical descriptions of these creatures could vary slightly, they all follow the same overall trend. Clothes consistent with an IKEA uniform, no face, either seemingly too tall or too short, and limbs that are grossly out of proportion with their bodies. As the Foundation began sending drones deeper into SCP-3008-1, they found another incredible discovery. There was an unknown population of humans trapped inside IKEA's anomalous zone, and these people had used the IKEA furniture around them to create entire settlements and towns within the store. There were several of these towns, all of which seemed to cohabitate peacefully. Even Foundation personnel found this development in their research to be truly extraordinary. Since SCP-3008 was first identified, there have been only 14 civilian escapes. Some had been trapped inside for months, others had been in there for years, some far longer than Martin's 3-year stint. While every one of these escapees has eventually been released back to their home, after a liberal application of amnestics and a proper cover story has been devised, the Foundation interviewed each of them extensively first. According to each of these escapees, the people trapped inside the IKEA have built an entirely new society across the various settlements. Contrary to the Lord of the Flies' expectations of a group of people isolated and afraid, there's immense cooperation between the trapped civilians. The food in the several IKEA restaurants in SCP-3008-1 mysteriously replenishes while nobody's there, so there's no threat of starving. And the automatic turning on and off of the lights forms as a rudimentary kind of day and night cycle. Nighttime, however, is when things get dangerous, as the SCP-3008-2 entities, which are known to the people inside as the staff, become extremely hostile after dark. Aggressive hordes of the staff swarm the settlements at night, repeating, "This door is now closed, please exit the building." The civilians inside are usually able to repel these attacks with minimal casualties, but the constant war of attrition slowly wears down those inside. The bodies of the creatures also need to be removed from the area after each attack, as the presence of corpses or even parts of corpses has been known to heighten the ferocity of the next night's attack. During the day, the staff return to a docile and unresponsive state, though they'll still defend themselves violently if anyone dares to attack. How had so many people gone missing in the store for so long without being noticed? But the answer they received only raised many more unsettling queries. According to the escapees, there were people inside the settlements that, despite being otherwise of entirely sound mind and standard intelligence, seemed to lack very common knowledge that even a child should know. For example, some of them weren't aware of the International Space Station orbiting the Earth, or stranger still, the existence of the Statue of Liberty. This led the researchers to a frightening conclusion. SCP-3008-1 may not only be a nexus point of multiple IKEA stores in our dimension, it could be connected to IKEAs in every dimension where IKEAs exist. While it only abducts a handful of people from each store over an extended period of time, it suddenly becomes clear how this SCP was able to trap so many people without detection over such a long period of time, which in turn led to an even more terrifying revelation. The SCP Foundation may not have SCP-3008-1 as contained as they thought. It might even be tucked away in an IKEA store somewhere near you, just waiting for you to visit. After all, there's always room for one more.
Damn! Do we think IKEA's ever played on this and done a little marketing thing? Like an IKEA SCP, but actually in the store? Because they should do. Why do I feel that if we give too much SCP to Moody, we're gonna fry her brain? Bro. It feels like it. This feels like brain fried material. This is deep fried brain rot. Packaged in something that seems real, which is the worst kind of brain rot. Next one we have is Cthulhu. Let's see this one.
Clad in red robes, kneel before an unholy altar. They chant and mutter indecipherable words. Words of cruelty.
I like the visual going through the hood. That was interesting.
And madness, of obsession and sacrilege. Not long ago, these were regular people. Computer technicians, teachers, plumbers, construction workers, accountants. This was before they fell under the ungodly influence of a new ruler. The center of this makeshift place of worship was once a normal school gymnasium, but it's now the home of a huge statue. A humanoid being, wreathed in tentacles.
Thank you, Phoenix.
Its head is more like a squid or cuttlefish than anything resembling an actual human face. While he's known to the cult...
What does a cuttlefish look like? It just looks like a squid. Wait, what does a squid look like? Huh? Bro,
Says the
I know
tentacled god,
nothing.
the beast they worship is known to the SCP Foundation as SCP-2662, and he sits in the belly of one of their
I thought Cthulhu had an octopus head. I don't know where this cuttlefish slander is coming from. What's that?
expansive containment facilities, locked away from the world. But not for
Containment.
long, if his devoted followers have anything to say about it. This is their god, all-powerful and unchanging, and when it comes to springing him from containment, no tactic is too vile or underhanded to get the job done. Their mortal leader and high priest, a man in a purple robe calling himself Brother Marsh, walks among their crouched forms. He whispers instructions for the great day of liberation that's soon to come, providing everyone plays their
Want a
part.
break from the ads?
It's a plan months in the making, and one that, if it goes off without a hitch, could free their monstrous god into the world. They would strike at the very heart of their enemy, the SCP Foundation, when they least expect it, and nothing shall stand in their way. How could they lose when they have a god on their side?
I feel like if Cthulhu can't get out of the SCP though, like, you know, maybe he's not the one you should be worshipping, right? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm putting it out there, okay? I'm putting it out there.
But why did all
That's
these
just me.
normal people become violent zealots for a squid-faced deity? It all began with a dream.
Yeah, worship IKEA. They can't contain that, guys.
To those who experienced these dreams, they felt more like prophecies, premonitions of the glorious horrors to come. A red sky, billions dead, and billions more enslaved, a dark silhouette on the horizon. Their tentacled god holding dominion over all. At first, it just seemed like a strange nightmare. The ones who
Ew, I don't like the
experienced it
tonsil.
woke up shaken and afraid, hoping to shake the images from their mind, but they couldn't. Every night, the nightmare would return. They'd see the images, the red sky, the dead and enslaved,
Damn.
the tentacled god. And after a while, it would come to them even when they weren't asleep. Eventually happening whenever they closed their eyes. Little by little,
Jeez.
this scene stopped looking so hideous and started to look glorious. They felt his presence in their minds, slowly pushing them towards their inevitable future. They started to realize that they wanted him to rule over the universe and to experience the honor of serving him. Many of them abandoned their homes and
honor.
families, leaving their friends and loved ones left to worry that they'd gone
Poor little
insane.
Chimmy.
In their eyes, they were safer than they'd ever been. They finally had purpose. They were working in service of something far greater than themselves. The influence of the tentacled god drew them closer to one another. They would meet in secret, exchanging information from the prophecies their ruler sent to them in their dreams. They worshiped together, building altars and idols to congregate around. They performed dark blood rituals involving human and animal sacrifice. It was when
No!
Brother Marsh, the Anointed One, arrived to guide them towards their true mission that things kicked into high gear.
Anointed.
Just 3 months prior, Brother Marsh had been an office drone working in data entry for a large insurance company before the tentacled god invaded his thoughts with a simple message. Free me, and the new world I create shall be your playground. Since then, he devoted himself completely to the cause.
Anointed equals oiled up. What?
That was the single goal he united the cultists under, freedom for the tentacled god. And at long last, they had all the pieces in place to strike. They'd finally gathered the necessary intel to subvert the will of the most powerful secret organization on Earth. Even the strongest institution is made of people, and people are weak. Unlike the almighty tentacled god, people could be broken. The people in question were Kelly Thompson, Sidney Levitt, Jordan Broach, Dr. Juan Gutierrez, and Jillian Larson.
What?
Dr. Juan Gutierrez was a researcher with level 3 clearance on the site where the tentacled god was being contained. Sidney Levitt and Jordan Broach were both security officers charged with verifying personnel clearance on site. Kelly Thompson was a member of site administration with research authorization powers, and Jillian Larson was a research assistant who often collaborated with Dr. Gutierrez. These 5 were the key to getting access to SCP-2662 and bringing their plan
I'll do it after the video. I think it's gonna mess up.
Normally, personnel dossiers on people working for the Foundation were highly confidential, but the devotees of the tentacled god had their ways. They had a number of computer experts in their ranks, more than capable of hacking in and pulling some basic information off of Foundation servers without being detected. For the other information they needed, they turned to some good old-fashioned torture, which is often the most effective method when you need some quick results. Of course, while the cult's
torture doesn't work. We all know torture doesn't work. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Grip on sanity may have been a little tenuous. They weren't stupid. While gathering their intel, they also made sure to find out what exactly they were up against. SCP-2662 was being held in a humanoid containment cell and guarded by on-site Task Force Town 9, better known as the Belligerent Bodyguards. These aren't lazy, donut-chomping mall cops. These are a heavily trained, heavily armed fighting force. Though the cultists had one thing that these Foundation soldiers didn't: the element of surprise. Tau 9 had been charged with tracking down any new SCP-2662 cults and dismantling them, and Brother Marsh knew that it was only a matter of time before the Foundation tracked them down and did the same to them. If they wanted any chance of freeing the tentacled god, then they'd need to strike quickly and with overwhelming force. The SCP-2662 worshippers were able to secure the addresses of the 5 key Foundation personnel and station members outside each of them, including one who could realistically imitate each. They waited for night to fall and broke into each of their homes as they slept. What followed was a sequence of ruthless and efficient murders done in the cause of freeing their god. Dr. Gutierrez was shot in the head while he slept. Sidney Levitt and Jordan Broche were both stabbed to death before either even realized what was happening. Thompson, who'd gotten up to use the bathroom, went down in a hail of machine gun fire. Jillian Larson had seen that masked figures were breaking into her home and attempted to flee, but was caught and beaten to death by cultists in her hallway. It was a strange irony that people whose day jobs entailed working with some of the most dangerous and nightmarish anomalies imaginable were murdered in their homes by nothing more than regular humans. So far, Brother Marsh's plan had gone perfectly, with all 5 key personnel murdered within a 2-minute period. Next, the selected doppelgangers stole clothes from their victims' closets and were handed the correct forged documentation. The next morning, each replacement began their journeys to the site where the tentacled god was being contained, while the rest of the cult armed themselves in preparation for their own part in the plan. Nobody at the Foundation seemed to notice anything amiss when the 5 arrived on site. When you work for the SCP Foundation, more mental energy is devoted to following the rules that keep you alive than to memorizing the faces of all your coworkers, and each one slipped neatly into position, disappearing into the familiarity of office life. But infiltrating the site was one thing. Getting past the belligerent bodyguards and into the cell of the tentacled god would be another thing entirely.
Oh, the backrooms has SCP influence. Yeah, I thought I heard that before.
That's where the rest of the cult would come into play. Heavily armed with whatever firearms they could get their hands on, the rest of the devotees of the tentacled god, Brother Marsh included, would attack the containment site head-on. In the ensuing chaos, the 5 cultists who had already infiltrated the site could take advantage of the distraction and break into the containment chamber. It was perfect. They launched their attack from the outside and from within. When Brother Marsh declared that the time was right, the assault began. A legion of gun-wielding cultists seemed to spring out of nowhere and started shooting up the warehouse that was a front for the containment site. The site quickly mobilized guards and task force members to take on the sudden threat, and just as Brother Marsh had anticipated, the site director called on the majority of Tau 9 to help repel the violent cultists from their perimeter. Tau 9 obeyed, leaving 3 task force members behind to guard SCP-2662's containment chamber. They expected to be guarding the cell from rampaging religious zealots seeking an audience with their god. What they didn't expect was a group of 5 Foundation employees walking right up to them and opening fire, killing 2 Tau 9 members and taking the 3rd as hostage.
What?
While the war was being waged outside, the infiltrators had found the tentacled god's containment cell in the low-risk humanoid ward. Their hostage insisted that using him wouldn't give them any leverage. The rest of his team would neutralize the whole group, him included, if that's what it took to stop them. The infiltrators explained that using him as leverage was never their intention. He wasn't a hostage at all. He was a sacrifice.
What?
The cultists of the tentacled god detonated explosives, creating a hole in the wall and finally giving them access to their deity. They climbed through and gazed upon him in awe. There stood SCP-2662, twice as tall as a regular man, with 10 huge tentacles emerging from its back. In their months of envisioning this creature, they'd pictured it sitting on a throne made of thousands of human bones, ready to dictate its commands to the obedient liberators. What they certainly didn't expect was to see the tentacled god hunched over a computer screen.
What?
Still, gods work in mysterious ways. So they stuck to the plan and began chanting. They pulled out a sacrificial dagger and began sacrificing their captured Tau 9 member. It was at this point that SCP-2662 turned and saw what they were doing with a look of pure horror. He rose up from his computer, his headphones getting caught as he did so. He told them to go away, that he didn't want them here, and that them murdering people in his bedroom like this was inconsiderate and disgusting. The cultists became even more confused. Why wasn't their god accepting their offerings? What were they doing wrong? They tried more chanting and painting arcane symbols on the floor in blood, but this just seemed to make the creature angrier. He told them, in a tone more fitting for a teenage boy than a Lovecraftian god, to just leave him alone so he could play his video games. This was seriously not cool. The cultists were baffled. They told the tentacled god that they were there to free him. He replied that he didn't need saving, that crazy stalkers like them were why he turned himself into the Foundation in the first place. Before the cultist infiltrators could get another word in, the remaining members of Tau 9 stormed into the containment cell and gunned them down with surgical precision. The war outside was already over. Brother Marsh and the rest of the cultists were all killed in the firefight. Tau 9 didn't look the least bit surprised upon entering 2662's cell. This was a common occurrence, unfortunately. They had to deal with an attempted cult invasion every few months, because SCP-2662's main anomalous ability is inspiring violent cults who relentlessly track down and worship it with arcane and bloodthirsty rituals. The problem is, 2662 doesn't do this consciously, and definitely doesn't like the results. That's why he's under the voluntary care of the SCP Foundation, who keeps him amused with video games and reading material, while fending off the deranged cults who try to invade and abduct him. Following the termination of the devotees of the tentacled god, just one of many cults who'd broken into 2662's containment cell, the remaining Tau 9 members apologized to the tentacled creature for the disturbance, allowing him to return to his gaming. They assured him that it'd probably be at least a few more months before something like this happened again.
He just wanted a game, bro.
SCP-2662's cell was repaired, and the Foundation returned to its task of seeking out would-be cult emancipators, because for the SCP Foundation, it's not always about the anomaly that's being kept in containment, but what's being kept out. Now go check.
Okay, we're 2 videos in to this SCP stuff. Okay. I'm getting the feeling this is like spooky memery. It's not just memery. I don't know. We got one more. This one's called MalO, I think. Or Mal. I mean, is that 0 or an O? I can't. That's an O. MalO. MalO is the last one we are watching, and then I will give my final verdict on SCP.
An app for that.
Steve Jobs.
Wait, hold on. I'm Steve Jobs.
It is Steve Jobs. Oh my god, you called it.
It was a phrase so ubiquitous in the early days of the smartphone craze that it's hard to believe Apple actually has trademarked. It was a testament to a simple and immutable truth about the world these new touchscreen phones were creating. No matter how strange and obscure the need, there would be an app to fulfill it. Perhaps you remember iBeer, the app that allowed you to pretend you were drinking a tall glass of beer.
What?
For some reason. There was Car Maybe, an app that reminded you where you parked your car. And who could forget I Am Bread, a surreal game about controlling a sentient slice of bread on a quest to become toast.
Was it?
But there's one app out there somewhere on the market that you probably didn't download. And if you did, well, you have our sincerest apologies. Because even seeing this video pop out onto your feed probably sent a chill down your spine. Well, if that chill ever even left. Take it from one gentleman whose life took a very strange turn after downloading a certain app that the SCP Foundation calls SCP-1471. Because the sentiment, "there's an app for that," doesn't exclude experiencing mortal terror. Joe Lillis, an insurance salesman from Milwaukee, had just gone through another atrocious date. After a mediocre meal and an uncomfortable 35 minutes of inane babble, sensing the whole time that she really wasn't that interested, his date excused himself to take a quick phone call outside. Sadly for Joe, she never returned, leaving him to pick up the check.
Wow,
of all the many
that's
words
rude
you could
as
use
hell.
to describe poor Joe Lillis, the most pertinent would be lonely. Ever since Carol, his wife of 10 years, had passed away in a freak accident, he'd been trying to find some kind of way to fill the void. They'd been high school sweethearts, intent on spending the rest of their lives with one another. As fate would have it, only Carol would get that tainted luxury. Joe would be forced to endure life after the joy of living had run its course. He only hoped he might be lucky enough to find love again. However, Joe was on the wrong side of 40, and as so many others his age were already hitched, he could feel his options going out one by one. Would he be destined to live?
Bro, I can't imagine dating in your 40s, bro. I feel like it's gotta be so difficult. It's gotta be so difficult, dude.
Live out the rest of his days alone? Joe didn't feel like spending the back half of his life catching reruns of Seinfeld and tending to his fish. He needed to get out there. And thankfully, like the rest of us, he lived in the internet age. He had more apps, websites, online services, and hot Russian singles in his area than he knew what to do with. So surely one would have the right person for him. He tried them all. Tinder, Hinge, Match.com, Plenty of Fish, eHarmony, Bumble, Zoosk, OkCupid, Friend Finder, Deeply Lonely Singles with Low Expectations.com, and so much more. However, all it seemed to achieve was setting him up for more disappointment. None of the dates he'd managed to get ever resulted in anything getting serious. Heck, it was a minor miracle if he even managed to get any of them on a second date.
Why are they so angry?
Was this his life now? Had he only ever gotten one shot at love, and the grasping claws of fate yanked it away from him without a second thought? Would life continue on the hamster wheel of loneliness? Sleeping, getting up, eating, working, and sleeping again? Every day getting somehow both faster and slower as life trudged on to a disappointing yet inevitable conclusion? What a terrible fate to find yourself trapped in. Whenever Joe started feeling maudlin like this, he knew it was time to get proactive again. Maybe the right woman was out there. There were billions of them after all. Surely at least one of them would be the perfect person for him. He just needed the perfect app. He'd burned through all of the most reputable apps already, and was now
Bro, get off the dating apps. I feel like the dating apps are the problem, bro. Oh my gosh. Dating in your 30s sucks too. I mean, I could see that as well. I could see that as well, bro. Oh, jeez. Yeah, but imagine that in your 40s. That's like an extra 10% worse. Oh my gosh.
Perusing some of the slightly seedier options, most of which were likely data mining fronts from the Balkans. However, as generic app after generic app passed, something different caught his eye. The icon was a smiling cartoon dog, and its name was MalO version 1.0.0. This gave him a little chuckle. At the very least, it was very different branding from the rest of the dating apps he'd seen. Maybe it had just been sorted into the wrong section of the App Store. He decided he'd check it out and take a look at the app's description. The description read, "Never settle for those awkward feelings of being alone ever again. MalO is an exciting and interactive experience that will keep you engaged and intrigued. The anxiety of social situations can be nerve-wracking, but after just a few hours of MalO, you will soon forget all about those painful emotions of disappointment. Be part of the new craze that is quickly becoming the next social substitute. Remember, the more you participate, the more MalO will engage you." Your experience is completely up to you. Absolutely
Yeah, I can see where this one's going. Damn.
no ads. Enjoy. Well, it certainly provoked Joe's curiosity at the very least. He did want to banish his feelings of loneliness, and seeing as the app was free and apparently had no ads, he'd surely be foolish to not at least give it a whirl. What's the worst
It's stealing
that
your
could happen?
data.
He began the installation, and only then noticed that the app had no listed developer. It took up 9.8 megabytes of memory, which he wasn't tech-savvy enough to see any issues with. More than anything, Joe was just enticed by the prospect of finally having another chance at companionship with
MalO.
After all, it is the next social substitute, whatever that means.
This is like if her was a furry. Like, has anyone seen that movie like Fur? Like Her? Fur. That's what it is. It's called Fur. The movie Her. I feel like this is her, but with a furry in it.
However, Joe's excitement was
Fur.
quickly quashed when he hit the home screen button and noticed that the icon for the app never actually materialized. Strange. He checked the App
Yeah, it's
Store
about
portal
AI.
again and saw that, according to them, the app had
like an AI
completely
dating thing.
downloaded. What gives?
It's really weird.
Was it a
You should
glitch,
definitely watch
or
it.
was MalO actually just malware? Either way, he was disheartened by the fact that this immaterial app certainly wouldn't be getting him any companionship. Or so he thought, anyway. Joe was used to disappointment by now, so he didn't take it too personally. He decided to just play out the rest of his evening on autopilot, making himself some soup, doing the laundry, watching more Seinfeld reruns, taking a cold shower, and preparing to cry himself to sleep again.
MalO.
Was already becoming a distant memory, just like all the deceptive sources of hope. But one strange thing happened that disrupted Joe's finely tuned evening routine. He received a text message. This was incredibly strange because nobody ever seemed to text him. The last text he got was from Carol just before her accident, so it was almost surreal to hear that alert sound now, after everything that happened. He checked and saw that the text was an image attachment sent from an unknown number. Perplexed yet curious, he decided to open it. His curiosity soon gave way to a kind of melancholy nostalgia when he saw that the photo was of his and Carol's favorite cafe in town. They'd spent
What?
many a morning there, back when she was alive, treating themselves to a nice cup of coffee and perhaps a croissant. Just seeing it again caused an involuntary smile to spread across his face. It never even occurred to him, as it probably would have to others, that this could be seen as a little creepy. He hadn't frequented the bakery since Carol died. How would anyone even know that this place held any significance for him? Was it a stalker, a ghost, or just a spooky coincidence? None of these thoughts even crossed Joe's mind. He was just grateful for the surprising reminder of the happiness he'd once had. For the next couple hours, things seemed lighter. He went about his evening, checking the photo every so often and smiling, until eventually he found himself in bed, still looking into the glow of his phone. It was such a beautiful little cafe. Then he froze. He noticed something in the picture. It'd been there the whole time, but only now he was seeing rather than just looking. It was in the corner, staring through the glass of the cafe's door. So faint, he almost wanted to dismiss it as a trick of the light. It was a face. Well, not a face, more like a skull. Not a human, not anywhere near human. Long, slender, and canine, with protruding fangs and vacant white eyes. The pure white of the skull was buried in a nest of thick black hair. It looked like it was crouching behind the door, looking out and grinning, whatever the hell it was. Just seeing it changed the entire tone of the picture. It was no longer a simple reminder of bygone joy. Now all that was radiating out of that image was a palpable sense of dread. Was someone playing some kind of awful prank on him? Just then he was jogged from his contemplation by another alert. A new message from the same number as before. With great hesitation, he hovered his thumb over the push notification and clicked. That's when everything got a lot worse. It was a photo of a bus stop. Not just any bus stop, of course. It was stop C16, the one that Joe always took to get to work. It looked like it was taken relatively early in the morning, but nobody was there. Well, not quite nobody. There was that figure again. It stood at full height, behind the partially frosted glass that makes up the back of the bus stop. The same large black humanoid shape, with a white, grinning dog skull where the face should be. Something about it terrified him on such a primal level, like the way our lizard brain reacts to some ancient apex predator. And whatever this thing was, it clearly knew something about him. How else could it stage all these photos? Joe got out of bed and looked out of the window, down onto his dark front street. Empty, thankfully. But after this surprise nightmare, he wasn't going to take any chances. He grabbed a kitchen knife from downstairs and placed it on his bedside cabinet, right next to his phone, with 911 on speed dial. Joe Lillis, a 43-year-old man, slept with the lights on that night for the first time in over 30 years. The next morning, Joe woke up unharmed, but he wasn't pleased to see that he'd gotten several more texts in his sleep. There was one taken outside of the local insurance company office where he worked. The strange creature with the skull for a face was looming around the corner, peering at the camera with its lipless grin, like it was mocking him. Another photo was taken at the local supermarket where Joe did most of his grocery shopping. The frame was centralized on the cereal aisle, bordered on both sides by walls of garish mascots endlessly repeated. Down at the far end of the aisle was a looming dark figure with that cold canine skull where a human face should be. There were a few more, but worst of all was the last one. It was taken at the cemetery. In the foreground, a headstone reading, Carol Lillis, beloved wife and daughter. Joe was horrified to see that skull-faced beast was rising up behind his wife's grave. Long, clawed fingers curling around the top of the headstone.
Damn.
That was the moment that Joe decided to go to the police about all of this, before things got even more out of hand. While the behavior undeniably bordered on harassment, it hadn't yet delved into criminal territory, so he would sadly be on his own until then. The best they could do was stay in touch and kept abreast of any new developments. The only sage advice they could give him was not to delete the photos, as they could always be used as evidence in court later if things escalated. This was literally the last result that Joe wanted out of this. What else could he do but carry on, just trying to exercise as much caution as he could in these strange new circumstances? On one hand, every time he looked at one of the photos, Joe felt like he was giving this freak exactly what they wanted. On the other hand, how could he possibly look away? What if he missed something that could save his life? It carried on much like that until later in the evening. Joe may have not been a genius, but he was no fool either. He'd seen too many of those seedy true crime documentaries about kidnapping to take his normal route home. He took a real detour, frequently checking over his shoulder the entire time. Much to his relief, he didn't see anything out of place. Good. When he got home, he locked every door and bolted every window. Nothing would be getting the jump on him tonight. That's when the next picture came in. A photograph of Joe's empty office cubicle with the bony face of the creature looming over the divider with a grin. He could feel his heart pounding away in his chest just looking at it. How did this thing get around like this? How was it able to infiltrate everywhere in his entire goddamn life? Suddenly, he felt a smile spreading across his face. This freak had just messed up big time. Before, all these creepy photos had been taken in public places, but the one taken in his office? Oh, this crossed the line into trespassing. The police would have to do something about it now.
How did no one else see this?
Oh, it had given him an ace up his sleeve.
I was like, is it editing itself into his images? But then I realized it can't. Why the hell would he take a picture of a bus stop? Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
That confidence faded a few hours later when he received another photo. This time, it was the skull-faced monster just standing on the sidewalk. The sidewalk that Joe remembered walking on his covert alternative route. He could feel himself break into a cold sweat. It seemed whoever this was, he really did hold no secrets from them. Now more than ever, Joe didn't feel safe in his own home. So you can only imagine how he felt when a few hours later, he received a photo of the skull-faced stalker standing right outside his own front door, staring into the camera. It sent him rushing to the window again to check outside, but of course, nobody was there. The next day, when he called the police and updated them on the situation, they told him that they were doing all they could. The best thing he could possibly do was to remain calm, but vigilant. He needed to keep an eye on the photos being sent to him, so he could notify them if ever he was in any immediate danger. This put poor Joe's paranoia at a fever pitch. Even when he went to work, surrounded by his coworkers, by witnesses, he could scarcely tear his eyes away from his phone. He was a slave to the photos, forever waiting for the next one. It looked like it was taken moments before it was sent to him. Joe saw himself looking at his own phone in his office cubicle, with that huge skull-faced figure looming behind him. He screamed out loud upon seeing it, and turned to see if anything was behind him. But of course, there was nothing there. The police inspected the office, talked to potential witnesses, and analyzed the photo. It showed no signs of any photographic manipulation, but there were also no witnesses around the office who claimed to see anything strange that day. There was also no security camera footage in the last several days that showed this figure coming in or out.
Bro, this music slaps for this one. I am gonna say this is some pretty good music. I like this. I like this. The furries are down bad AF. Bro, I mean, I can see it. She's spooky. She's spooky.
Joe Lillis started to feel like he was going
I can see
insane,
it.
and perhaps he was. But that didn't change the tangible and ever-present feeling that he was in great danger. He didn't come into work the next day. He'd received more photos like that in the night, of himself, taken in real time, with that skull-faced freak looming. He didn't want to leave the house. He didn't want to go anywhere anymore. He just didn't feel safe out there. How could he, with all this madness unfolding? There was a time where he could have said something like, "At least it only seems confined to my phone." He might have even suspected that it had something to do with that strange MalO app he downloaded a few days prior that hadn't seemed to do anything. But this situation had evolved since then. He wasn't just seeing the creature in photos anymore. It was here. He kept seeing quick flashes of it on the other side of windows, in reflections, in the corner of his eyes, always darting away if ever he turned towards it. The police couldn't help. Nobody could help. Joe just sat in the corner of his bedroom, clutching his kitchen knife,
put the phone
afraid
down,
to close
buddy.
his eyes. It could be anywhere. It could be anywhere. It could be anywhere. We know one thing for sure. Joe Lillis never felt truly alone ever again. He always had his new friend, waiting, just out of sight. And if ever you're feeling lonesome and decide to download MalO version 1.0.0 yourself, then you'll never feel lonely again either. Now go check out SCP-1025 Encyclopedia of Common Diseases and Worse Ways to Die SCP Edition for more SCP.
Interesting. How do I feel about these? This is interesting to me because it feels like from what I understand, these are not all spooky. Some of them are a bit more serious. We just happen to have seen a lot of the funny ones so far. I am curious what some of the other ones look like. Let me see, because you guys said you put some more in the Discord. I'm gonna see if we can find another one that maybe isn't a spooky one. Let me have a look. Okay, let's watch this one. I guess that SCP logo was like is the same throughout all of them then? Not deer. The not deer guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-6448.
Wait, this guy's like cosplaying as one of the SCP members of staff. This is kind of cool. Okay, I'm already invested. This is kind of cool.
Containment class Keter, disruption class Kennick, and risk class Warning. Special containment procedures. Containment of SCP-6448 should be focused on investigation of deer exhibiting anomalous traits within and around the Appalachian area. All civilian sightings of SCP-6448 should be attended to by Mobile Task Force Gamma-4, Green Stags. Possible deaths resulting from SCP-6448 should be attributed to hiking accidents, and sightings are to be blamed upon chronic wasting disease. The Site-44 Cryptozoology Division is tasked with ongoing research into the not deer phenomenon. Should an SCP-6448 instance be captured, it is to be brought to Site-44 for containment and study. Description: SCP-6448 is an anomalous branch of the Cervidae family. All members of this group display heightened intelligence, and are presumed to be sapient.
He learned the 3D model just to enhance his videos. Bro, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Many specimens exhibit some form of physical malformation, causing them to stand out from non-anomalous deer. While the exact details of physical abnormalities differ between instances, repeat commonalities are as follows. Legs bent backwards, barrel-chested or bloated abdomen, emaciation, eyes belonging to unrelated animals,
what?
forward-facing eyes, erratic movements, loss of fear towards humans, tendency to walk on 2 hind legs, general bodily disfigurement. Aside from physical disfigurement, instances show severe divergence from the behavior of other cervids. Namely, SCP-6448 are known to watch, observe, and stalk humans, often for hours or days.
Ew!
This includes following humans to and from their homes, wherein they will proceed to steal belongings, weapons, and food. Very rarely will SCP-6448 attack victims while they are indoors. SCP-6448 are most commonly encountered in deep woodland, particularly at night or dusk when a person is alone. Any form of direct acknowledgement of SCP-6448's anomalous traits in these situations will always result in the victim's termination. In such situations, personnel are to observe the extract of service protocol attached to this file immediately. See below.
Bro, this thing's creepy as hell. Look at the state of this. Look at the state of this. Already what I will say, I prefer the vibe. The vibe is a bit better on these videos. I like that it's not trying to cram information down my throat so quickly. I enjoy that. The one thing I will say is my brain rotted ass needs more pictures flashing on the screen. I need the storybook pictures. Okay, I need a bit more of that. But other than that, very good. I need a bit more brain rot, okay? I need like Subway Surfers on the side. You know what I mean? But it's good. It's good.
Service Protocol, SCP Foundation, Cryptozoology Division.
SCP Coco Melon, bro. I will say, I think if we started on this video versus the other videos, I would have, the interest levels would be struggling because of the lack of brain rot, I will say.
If it knows that you've noticed it, it's too late. If you hear your name, whistling, or something else in the woods calling for you, don't acknowledge it. Never acknowledge it exists. Don't respond. Don't go looking for it. Don't call back to it. Presently, SCP-6448 are known to inhabit only the Appalachian region of North America. The previous sentence was stricken from the document. History. SCP-6448 was officially assigned anomalous classification in 1980, though they have been recognized by local people since 1947. SCP-6448 is a firmly cemented figure in Appalachian folklore, known colloquially as the not deer due to their striking similarity to the species they imitate. Many locals claim to have encountered instances of SCP-6448 or possess knowledge of an individual who has. A majority of local communities living in rural areas of high activity are aware of the precautions required to avoid hostile encounters, primarily due to urban legends and stories involving the entities. SCP-6448 were previously researched at Site-41, located in an unknown location, North Carolina. On 11/01/1994, a group of 3 SCP-6448 instances broke into the site utilizing a tunnel system carved over an extended period of time.
3 of them?
This triggered containment breach alarm systems, and the site entered lockdown protocol. The single instance kept in containment, being prepared for dissection, was lost in the breach and not recovered. Over the following decade, a further 5 SCP-6448 instances would be captured and contained, all of which would escape the site through tunnels carved by other SCP-6448 entities.
What?
The decision was made to transfer all instances to Site-44, overseas, to prevent further breaches. Since this decision, no capture attempts have been successful.
Why?
Addendum 6448 1. Recently recorded civilian encounters. The first reports of SCP
Not deer are legit Appalachian cryptid, are they? I've never heard of this.
SCP-6448 surfaced around the week of 07/07/1947. In the time since the genus's discovery, many members of the public have encountered the entities, though most accidentally stumbling upon them do not alert local authorities. This is typically due to the SCP-6448 instance either merely watching the subject or becoming hostile. The following is a log of all recorded 911 calls related to SCP-6448 phenomena since the year 2000. Date: 02/01/2000. Victim, aged 41, female, dialed emergency services after hearing their name being called from the woods near their home. After 2 minutes, a vocalization was heard that was calling to the subject by name, emanating from the nearby forest. The subject was instructed to investigate the disturbance themselves and keep services updated on the situation. The victim then begins to walk into the woodland, getting about 50 meters into the underbrush before inexplicably stopping. They claim there to be a noticeably large deer standing in the way of the path. She begins to walk closer, though states it does not move. Subject diverts from the path and begins walking in a different direction. After 30 minutes, no source of the voice is determined. The caller returns to their residence. Date: 13/06/2002. Details: Victim, age 28, male, calls 911 regarding a home break-in. The caller notes numerous items to be missing from their residence and requests an investigation. Operators dispatch 2 investigators to visit the home and discern a potential perpetrator. The pair note that based on earlier CCTV images, all cutlery, sharp objects, firearms, light bulbs, and a single copy of the novel, The Day After Roswell, are missing. Also noted is that there is a complete lack of any fingerprints at the scene, with no doors or windows having been broken into.
Hoof marks.
Analysis of the home's CCTV footage revealed there to be a 2-hour period of missing film, with the exception of a single frame containing a service nippon on its hind legs reaching towards the camera. Its
What
frontal
the heck?
hooves have been warped to resemble fingers. No footage of the entity exiting the home was discovered.
Ew, that's crazy.
19/11/2005. Details: A cattle farmer aged 54, male, reported to local authorities the sudden disappearance of over 30% of his largest herd.
Damn.
Response teams searched the nearby area for 4 hours, though found no trace of the cattle. The victim was recommended to set up trail cams and note any unusual activity overnight. At 01:11 a.m., 2 SCP-6448 are seen walking through the field before fleeing. One places an object into the ground, later discovered to be a single fork. A week after this discovery, 200 discarded bovine hooves appear at the location. Date: 04/03/2009. Details: Victim, age unknown, gender unknown, dials 911 to request assistance from animal services. The victim is stood within a forest in front of a service elephant, which is violently contorting. The animal is repeatedly ramming itself into a tree, covered in blood and viscera. The victim begins to state, "You'd better get a vet or something, I don't think it's well," before a piercing screech is heard and the line falls silent.
Oh my gosh.
Recovered footage depicts the aforementioned animal squirming, seemingly in pain. A viscous churning is audible as a black mass erupts out of the instance, and the video turns to static.
What?
Date: 11/10/2012. Details: Victim, aged 23, male, is a junior wildlife officer at Cherokee National Forest, Tennessee. They radio their supervisor in early evening regarding a herd of Odocoileus virginianus within the reserve. Supposedly, there is a single animal that upon first glance appears average, though possesses divergent attributes including backward joints, an enlarged abdomen, and forward-facing eyes.
What?
Upon stating this, a distant whistle is audible and the victim stumbles slightly. They begin to say, "What the hell? Did it just whistle at me?" before the sound of hooves rapidly getting closer is heard. Notably, the hoof steps did not sound to be in the traditional gallop of a cervid. Date: 12/10/2012. Details: The aforementioned victim's supervisor calls the
thank you, Phoenix.
authorities
Thank you.
following the victim's absence from the reserve night shift. Following this, their radio begins to crackle. The victim's voice can be heard on the other end, and he requests the supervisor's attention.
Oh,
He calls regarding a herd of Odocoileus virginianus within the reserve. They claim there is a single animal that upon first glance appears average, though possesses divergent attributes including backward joints, an enlarged abdomen, and forward-facing eyes. Suspecting the creature to be a rare genetic malformation, the victim requests their supervisor to come to the location. The supervisor questions the victim about what happened the night previous. There is no reply. Upon the supervisor's and law enforcement's arrival at the site, a herd of approximately 80 Odocoileus virginianus was present.
80!
A single entity is in the field's center and appeared to be standing separately from the rest of the group. It flees the scene upon realizing the law enforcement's presence. Where it formerly stood laid a park ranger's standard two-way radio.
What the heck?
08/04/2016. Details. Victim, aged 35, female, dials 911 using a satellite phone, distressed. They state that they are in undisclosed county woods and are being followed. She claims that despite seeing no one for the duration of her hike, she feels as if she's being watched and has heard someone walking behind her at various points in the trip. The victim is unable to give an adequate description of her location, but knows the route to return to her residence. Operators request the victim to return to a point wherein she can provide a sufficient geographic description of her position.
Damn. Yeah, the groups are crazy big. Is it Wendigo? I don't think so. I think that's his own thing. I'm trying to remember what the Wendigo whole deal was.
The victim remains on the line for the duration of the hike back to a readily used portion of the wilderness trail. Along the journey, various unnatural sounds can be heard. These include footsteps, rock slides, coughing, whispering, and whistling. Nearing the main trail, all woodland noises such as birds and wind cease suddenly, and the victim states she can see a malformed deer carcass coated in a thick layer of black slime-like substance. At this time, human screams can be heard in the distance. Operators request the victim continue and ignore other stimuli.
Wendigos were humans. Oh, and they're more bloodthirsty. Okay, fair.
It's embedded in local law enforcement, suspecting SCP-6448 involvement, notify Gamma-4 to the situation. 20 minutes later, the victim returns to the main trail.
Okay.
Gamma-4, now operating the 911 call, informed the victim to not respond to any further unusual activity and briefly outlined service protocol. For the duration of the victim's journey to her home, 2 sets of breathing are audible. The victim successfully returns to her residence and shuts the door behind her. Now out of sight from SCP-6448, agents inquire upon the victim's address and the victim promptly complies. It is at this time that there is a knock on the front door. The victim does not respond and continues to hoard sharp objects from kitchen drawers. The knocking becomes more violent as the handle is being jostled and shaken incessantly. A voice on the other side repeats the phrase, "Hello, it is me. Hello, let me in a calm manner as the door begins to shake. The victim retreats to her wardrobe armed with a small firearm. Upon sealing herself in the space, the knocking ceases and footsteps can be heard, decreasing in volume. The sound of galloping is audible as the front door caves in.
What?
Footsteps can be now heard inside the home. The entity continues to repeat, "Hello, it is me. Hello, let me in," as it searches the small building. A bright light flashes overhead, seemingly circling the house. Eventually, the entity enters the victim's bedroom. Through a small slit in the wardrobe door, the victim can see a Cervus canadensis standing on its hind legs and surveying the room. Its movements are crooked and stiff, seeming to struggle to stand in a bipedal fashion. It slouches down to a quadrupedal crouch, similar to the stance of an arachnid.
What?
It inhales heavily, and its head locks on the view of the wardrobe. It is noted as possessing human eyes. It scampers toward the subject and opens the door.
You ever seen those dogs that have human eyes? Bro, they creep me out so much, dude. They creep me out so much. They aren't even supposed to look like deer. That's a misinterpretation from early. Really? What the heck? Oh my gosh.
A single gunshot is heard.
I'm glad you're doing good, though,
Responders
Schmorfus.
found no trace of either SCP-6448 or the victim. It should be noted that this represents a small fraction of human to SCP-6448 encounters, as the majority of occasions go unnoticed and undocumented. On these occasions, all associated video, photographs, and objects were confiscated by MTF Gamma-4, who also called off public investigation. Cover stories 356 Alpha, Home Break-In, and 898 Gamma, Missing 411 were successfully implemented.
Interesting.
Addendum 6448, 2, Incident 6448 Alpha.
Interesting. Wendigos are more spirits that possess people. Have a hunger for human flesh. They're supposed to be attracted to your location when you say their name. Oh, so yeah, maybe there was a bit of like inspiration between the two.
On 29/11/2019, Mobile Task Force Gamma-4, Green Stags, successfully detained and captured an instance of SCP-6448 with the assistance of Mobile Task Force Nu 7 Hammered Down's Heavy Vehicles Division and highly experimental shock rifles. The resulting skirmish left a single instance unconscious, which was swiftly placed aboard an armored CH-47 Chinook helicopter en route to Site 44 in England to prevent outside assistance. Upon reaching the site, the sedated entity was transferred to a containment cell without incident. The following is a log of events thereafter.
Interesting.
Incident 6448, Alpha. Date, 30/11/2019.
England.
Location, Site 44, Foulness Island, England.
Bloody England.
Playing log now. SCP-6448 instance is contained within a large reinforced steel containment cell, having just awoken from heavy sedation. Cryptozoology specialist F. Oz stands in front of a large one-way glass window that encompasses the room's south side.
Greetings, SCP-6448.
The instance suddenly bolts upright and stares at the intercom.
Can you understand me? We've seen your genus speak English just fine in the past.
Bloody SCPs coming over here and causing a nuisance, bro. Oh my god, do not. I heard of Trevor Henderson. I have not.
The instance does not respond. It begins licking its arm.
Please. We know your secret.
The instance pauses.
Admittedly, it wasn't exactly well kept. If you just look at yourself for more than a few seconds, it is very clear that you're not normal.
The instance is stood facing away from the window. Its neck swivels 180 degrees, visibly breaking multiple vertebrae as there is an audible crack.
Ew!
It does not blink.
I thought you said this was one way.
The instance's gaze remains locked on
Want a
research
break from the
hours.
ads?
Are you something imitating deer? It is clear that, if so, you possess basic anatomical knowledge on them, though details are faulty. In fact, a better question would be, how? Assuming you are not what you pretend to be.
The instance opens its mouth, which contains abnormally sharp teeth. Its jaw moves in a manner that seems to imitate speech. No intelligible dialect is heard, rather a sound similar to gagging or choking is audible.
What?
Shall we move on? What I'm more concerned with here is why you take our people. Is it to settle a vendetta? For food? Spite?
The instance blinks for the first time in the interview. The movement is noticeably forced.
Responding is mandatory.
The instance shows no reaction.
If you will not comply, maybe you'd like to see your brand new containment.
What?
Research. What kind of...
1947. The instance suddenly rams the 20-inch thick one-way glass, cracking it slightly.
What?
The instance begins to collapse. It contorts violently and begins screaming. Its abdomen bulges and writhes.
Get
A black, viscous mass of tendrils erupts out of the instance's side. It leaps and squirms around the cell before shattering the viewing window.
Damn.
The remaining carcass is entirely hollow.
Containment breach detected. All personnel report to the nearest safe room. Containment sector 4 last floor will seal in 10 seconds.
Oh my god.
The tendrilless mass swiftly maneuvers outside of Sector 4 in seconds, clearing the lockdown area. It travels in the direction of the main exit. The mass clears the main desk. It shatters the glass on the front exit and disappears into the outside shrubbery. A 2-month-long search proved inefficient in locating the escaped anomaly. Additionally, since this incident, there has been an unprecedented increase of CWD-afflicted deer and UFO reports in the area surrounding Site-44. Further research is ongoing.
Interesting.
Okay. I think that about does it for today. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye.
Damn. Very different style on this one. This video was by the Volgan. Guys. It's interesting seeing the different approaches to these. How do I feel about these? I guess it depends on what the format's like of these going forward. Because, like, this guy's format is very cool. It's very interesting. But what I will say is it feels very long and there's not a lot of shiny pictures. There's not a lot of shiny pictures. So that's like a little bit of a negative for me compared to the ones that Moo Moon had. But I'm guessing there's probably... I need a middle ground. I'm guessing there probably is one. I need a middle ground between, like, big shiny pictures and, like, cool storytelling setup type thing, right? Are the SCPs written in, like, this paragraph entry format that this guy has? Right, okay. So they're all kind of written as, like, entries. That feels a little bit, what's the name of it? Like, World War Z-esque to me. What I will say is World War Z, I liked the way that was done, because it, like, told a bit more of a story. I feel like this has a little way to go on that. I get what they're trying to do. I would like to see it work a little bit more like World War Z did with all that kind of stuff. Because World War Z did a really good job of, like, fitting all the little bits together to, like, paint a wider picture, which I think they're trying to do here. But it's missing, like, a little bit of the flavor for me. But I'm guessing it's just the format that we're receiving it in, right? Maybe there's, like, different formats that we're getting it that's different. Flavor text. Mostly which channel you like most. I wish there was something in the middle of these two. I want some more visuals, because I think the visuals, like, help a lot. And I think a little bit of the flavor helps a bit in, like, understanding it. But I do really like the atmosphere that the dude had. And I thought it was kind of cool that he was cosplaying as the guy. I just wanted, like, a bit more. A little bit more flavor. But it was good. Both of them have their merits.